very much, and welcome to Real Life and What I Have. I'm your host, Anthony. On this episode, I'll be interviewing a very important person. Well, they're all important, but this is especially a writer and a publisher. So you don't want to miss this episode. It is going to be exciting. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Let me get this straight. You sponsor me? Wait, I sponsor you.
Welcome back. I'm very proud to introduce my next guest, a published author, a writer, and I'm glad to say my friend, Paul T. Harry. Paul, how have you been?
Very good. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, Paul, you have several books available right now on Amazon, but the first one I'd like to talk to you about is The Five Moons of Tiana. That is something that I've actually read more than once. I really enjoyed it. Please tell me more about that book.
Okay, The Five Moons of Tiana is a story that I wrote that is based on the format of a book that I read when I was a young man, a child. I grew up reading Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter of Mars. He also wrote the Tarzan books. And so the story unfolds that he has escaped Malaya, which is his home planet, because they've been conquered by the alien Relcor. And he was in charge of the Princess of Malaya. He was her charge. And so he wakes up on this moon and he has, like I say, no idea where he's at. The princess is missing. So are all the other people who were in the ship with him. And so he begins his journey across these five different moons where there are totally different aliens and totally different civilizations. And has to solve the problem. He has to survive. He's got to figure out, is the princess alive? Where is she? And of course, the five moons all have their own problem. There's a moon war that's going on between the five moons, and Rez Cantor, that's the main character's name, he has to solve this mystery. And so he hops around from different moons and he puts it all together. And I don't want to give away any endings to the story, but it's an adventure. It is pure escapism. It's a lot of fun. It's also the one book that I wrote in first person. So when you read the story, you are in the mind of Rez Cantor and you're experiencing all the experience he has. And one of the things that happens to him when he goes to each moon is that something happens to him. He is altered. For instance, when he goes to the first moon, he ends up being physically altered so that he can breathe underwater. And he goes to another moon and they completely change his color. And so he goes through all of these issues and things happening to him, and he doesn't understand why, and he's kind of TO'd about it. But all of these things help him in the end to solve the riddle of the five moons of Tiana. And I had so much fun writing that book. And I hope I did Eddie Rice Burroughs. I hope I honored him, with the story. So if you can, you can pick up the copy of the book for 99 cents on Amazon. And I think you'll have a good summer read. So, pick it up if you can. Now, I will say this, one of the things that I was able to do with the five moons, in fact, I've actually done it with all the books, is I use Grammarly. That is an AI program that really, checks your spelling and your sentence structure and things like that. Because honestly, I got to say that as far as sentence structure goes, that's my one weak area. I know what I want to say, but sometimes, the Grammarly AI, and that's all it does. It doesn't put anything into the story. It just says, hey, this sentence structure or this paragraph here, you can approve it. Here's a suggestion. So I find that to be kind of beneficial. So I would recommend to anybody, if you're writing, that's a tool.
Okay, Paul, you've been writing for a very long time. What are your views on the AI and the AI use in books?
As far as AI goes, originally I was against it, but I quickly, after I started utilizing it, I found out that there's a lot of mistaken or confusion about AI. So the fact is that AI has some interesting abilities. It do. Where I have ended up using AI is take my writing and give it to Chat GPT-4, and I was able to say, give me a picture of this, because I always wanted to have a lot of the pictures that people could relate to. They could actually see what I was creating. So I found that was really advantageous, because for me to go to hire artists to draw or to create each individual picture would have been extremely expensive. And I found that AI was able to give me what I want. Although I have to say, you have to really coax it, and you have to spend time to bring the pictures out. AI cannot read your mind. It just can't create exactly what you want. So sometimes you have to go over and over and over again with what you're trying to create with a particular picture. But I felt it was successful. So the fact is that if you look at the Five Moons of Tiana, as one of the books that I have is it's a picture book. So you have all these pictures. There's like 60 pictures that go along with the story, and I just think, and a lot of people have really appreciated that they can actually see the creatures and aliens that I was envisioning in the story. So like I say, AI, it's useful, but it's not. You just can't give it a summation and say, "Give me a book," because you're not gonna end up with what you want. So you're gonna have to do your own writing, even if you are using AI.
The next book I'd like to talk about is a book that you actually wrote a long time ago. I do remember reading that quite a long time ago, but it's just been republished. It's called The Garden. Please tell me more about that one.
It had a very interesting theory about Adam and Eve, as well as a lot of other subject matter about our life here on Earth, and religion and everything like that. And I was really intrigued with the story of Adam and Eve. And after I read this account, I thought, whether or not you believe the story or not, that's up to the individual reader. But there was so much dynamics and so much drama with this theory about Adam and Eve that I said, this needs to be expounded on, and and told. So the difference between my book and the Ranch's treating of Adam and Eve, mine deals more with the human side of the story of what they went through as a couple. And essentially, in a nutshell, the theory is that Adam and Eve were sent here to raise the human race from the Neanderthal level of existence to what we now call the Cro-Magnon. And so it was the introduction of this couple around 40,000 years ago, early in our history, which, by the way, coincides with the advent of the Cro-Magnon making their appearance on Earth, because the Neanderthals had been here for a good 200,000 years. So this couple is sent to Earth, and the whole idea behind their existence here was they were supposed to raise the human race spiritually, physically, and bring culture and everything that we consider to be the goal of civilization. But Eve took it upon herself to, because of this strife that was going on, essentially in a nutshell, she had an affair with a tribal leader in the hopes that that would bring all of these races together and everybody would cohabitate. Well, you know what happens when you do that? The best laid plans just fall apart. And actually, their fleeing of the garden, they weren't driven out from the garden, but they left the garden because Adam did not want to have this huge world war. And so they fled, and that's why they ended up going to the Mesopotamia Valley, which is actually where the second garden was located. So there's a lot of dynamics that are going on in the story. And, I highly suggest, if you're interested and you like that sort of thing, this might be an interesting novel for you to take a look at.
The next book, which is also available on Amazon, as all the rest are, is your latest book called Nanovision. But it's actually an older story. Please tell me more about that one.
Yeah, I believe Nanovision was my third book, and Nanovision is sort of based off of an old movie that I saw as a kid called The Man with the X-Ray Vision.
No, I remember that actually.
And
Pluck his
okay,
eyes out at the
okay,
end.
yeah, exactly. So I was always intrigued with that story, and of course, the movie, was a long time ago. I think it was a black and white movie, but it was one of those movies that made an impression. So I had this concept of what would happen if somebody ended up with x-ray vision. What would be. So I created this story. It's a story of a young man. He's 16 years of age, and he walks in on a mob hit against his father, and his father is killed, and they destroy his home. The house is actually blown up, and this young boy Daniel is ejected from the explosion into the desert. It takes place in Pahrump, Nevada, and he is severely injured. He loses his eyesight. He has no memory of what has occurred. So the FBI puts him into their witness protection program, and fortunately, they're able to find a long lost relative who doesn't even know that Daniel exists, who lives in Sacramento, California. And she is a biotech wizard. She has a company called Nanobites. So Daniel goes to live with her. Make a long story short, she's sort of a Frankenstein kind of individual,
Nah.
a genius, and she is able to enable him to regain his sight. But he becomes super sighted, and he is able to see through things. So he has, a whole bunch of things that happen. He not only has, be able to see through things, but he's super sighted. He can see super long distances. He has all the genetics that from different animals, like, eagles and cats and everything like that. So it's a fun story. It's a fantasy.
Are you planning to do any audiobooks?
I would like to. Again, audiobooks are very expensive to create. And again, there are companies like 11, something 11, I can't remember what it is exactly, that tell you, hey, you can use, our AI to create your audiobook and stuff like that. But again, it's not that simple. AI cannot. When you write, you have an envision of what your character is saying or your character is doing, and AI doesn't necessarily understand that. So you have to again coax it. And quite frankly, I was trying to do it that way, and it was just getting very expensive.
Okay, let's talk about Amazon and self publishing. I know you have a few thoughts on that.
Well, I wish I had done it, years and years ago when the competition was so small. I mean, it's obviously, and Amazon is not the only one. There's trying to think what the other site is that publishes books. And it can definitely be to your advantage. I mean, Amazon, of course, was the first one, and it does give you the ability to put your work out there, and but you have to also remember that I think we're talking that Amazon publishes probably 4,000 books a week. And that number might even be low. So you have a tremendous amount of competition. So yeah, I mean, it's a place to go. It doesn't, if you're doing an electronic book, or you can even do a printed book because they have print on demand. So you're not coming up with a lot of cost. It's a bit of work, to format your book in the right, style and format that you want. But yeah, it's a great medium to put your material out there. But again, write because you want to write, and you get hope that people are really going to enjoy your books and things like that. But writing the book is one thing, but that is just the first step. There's a lot more steps involved into becoming a truly successful writer.
This has been a good interview so far, but what advice would you have for new writers and what should they be aware of?
I recently did a thing with one of my books where you pay a fee and you have a giveaway, and that giveaway they gave away I gave away 100 copies of the book. To me, it was sort of an unwritten contract. If I give you a copy of this book, you're going to take a look at it. You're going to give me some sort of feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. I don't care. But people don't respond. And so it's like, why did I spend the money? It was a waste of my time and energy. And I've noticed this on all these sites. They make some promises, oh, you can make connections, this or that. The problem is that you have so many writers out there that are trying to, bring out their books, their stories, and things like that. And it's a process. And you don't always, even though my books, if you notice when you look at my books, I have won a lot of awards for the stories. I've done very well. Personally, I think that's the way to go if you're a new writer. Enter. I don't Trying to get reviews for your books is really difficult now, because there's so many people trying to do it. But if you enter contests, you can, if your books are good, you can win those contests. You might win, third, fourth, first place, whatever, but you get something in return for your time and money in entering that particular contest. So my books have done pretty well, but that still does not necessarily translate into sales. Even though I have these noted on my book on Amazon and things like that, it's unfortunate people don't want to spend money. I have all my books. Just recently, I did a giveaway on Amazon with all my books, and I got a bunch of people who got a copy and stuff. And I really hope that they will read them and they'll give me some sort of review. But the fact is that I've now lowered all my books to basically 99 cents because nobody wants to spend any money. And it's like, well, you just do. So my advice for writers, is that if you're going to write because you want to write, you feel you have a story to tell. But unless you have a large budget, or you have somebody who's producing your books, don't necessarily count on making a great deal of sales, because there's just a tremendous amount of competition out there. And it can be a mixed bag. And in lieu of that, I also want to say that one of the things I would like to warn new writers about is that when you put a book out there, or you join these different websites and things like that, and you're doing a little bit of promotion, you're going to have a lot of people who say, "Oh, well, I will do this book tour with you. I will get you reviews. I can get you, a dozen Amazon reviews, et cetera, et cetera." All I can say about that is investigate. I'll give you a story of what happened to me. I had a contact from a woman on a website who said, I'm this writer, and I know I liked your book. I like what I saw. I see you don't have a lot of sales or whatever, or a lot of reviews. Would you like to use my PR person? I can introduce you. So I said, okay. So the next thing I know is that without me even going to contact this PR person, I get an email from the PR person and said, "Oh, so and so referred me to you," and stuff like that. Well, I'm the type of person who I don't necessarily trust everybody. So I started an investigation. And lo and behold, this author who had all of these reviews on her books, who was referring me to this PR person, turns out phony as the day is long. I actually contacted the writer because the writer herself lived in Australia. So I sent her an email and I said, "Hey," I said, "I've been in contact with you through this website and et cetera, et cetera." And she said, told me, she says, or her publicity agent contacted me back. She says, "Well, yeah, we've had a lot of reports of this, that her name and what likeness or whatever has been stolen from her." And I knew immediately. So I contacted the other PR person and I said, I'm not doing any business with you. You're not who you say you are. You're basically just trying to rip me off. Thanks for your time. Goodbye." So people need to be careful of that. Writers are like actors and actresses trying to make it in Hollywood. You're subject to a lot of people trying to take advantage of you. So, write for you. If you want to write for yourself. That should be your primary focus, because, if you get lucky, that's fantastic. But only about 1/2 of 1% is probably going to ever have terrific sales like Stephen King or something like that. So, just write because you love to write, and leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Can't wait to read your next book. But that would be an interview for another time. So until then, hit subscribe and I'll see you next time. Thank you.